Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris Tuck and Beverley Ann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward podcast with myself, Chris Tuck, and the lovely
Beverley Ann. Thank you very much. Your co-host for today.
He's my co-host. So we are doing our Have You Got 5 Minutes podcast today, and we thought it would just be really good to have a roundup of conversations that we've been having lately and also programs that we've been watching that we can bring some insight to. And this will lead on to our forthcoming or upcoming podcast that we've got planned for the rest of August. So, Beverley, let's start with the sextortion conversation program, conversations that you've been having. Over to you.
Well, the thing is, for me, I work with young people as well, and we know anyway by watching and listening to things, the impact social media has. And whilst it's a good platform for connection, it's also a huge danger to children. And we've said this before, and this is no finger pointing. How many parents don't want to let their children get on a bus and go meet their friend because they're frightened of what can happen to them? But when they think that they're safe upstairs in their bedroom, there's a lot more that can go on because they're privy to the world. And we're talking young children here as well. They think they're playing games just with their friends. And on Channel 5, there's a documentary called Untold, and they have a sextortion documentary. And I watched it only last week, actually. And it's on this program, it's towards young boys, because the amount of young boys who are taking their own life, they're dying by suicide, is huge after what happens. And I think it's really good to be aware, to be educated, not to frighten people. But if you have watched a program like this, it gives you an idea of how to have a conversation and open it. So it's around showing what actually happens, how they get trapped into sextortion, how they get groomed. And it is shocking.
Before you carry on, Bev, what is sextortion for our viewers and listeners that don't know?
Right. So they believe that they're chatting to a young girl or possibly another young boy if they're exploring their sexuality, and they receive images from them. And because they're in a safe environment and this other person's been sending images, they send images, but it will start off quite innocently. What do you look like? Take your top off, so it is step by step by step. And then when they send one or a couple and they're more intimate, suddenly they will be bombarded by this person, and there will be a clock come up, literally giving them 10 seconds, demanding money, £200 or something like that.
Right.
Now, in this program, what this young person has done is a young man, he's in his early 20s. He's acted out as if he's trying to trap someone into doing this. And he's actually, when I say he's trapping them, he's the person that gets extorted for money over images. Okay. So he can show what actually happens.
So is he a decoy? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
He set himself up to show the process.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so let me just go back. So a young person's being groomed.
Yes.
By someone who is sort of like building a little bit of a relationship with them, building that trust. And they're saying, basically, show me your body in some form. I'll show you mine. And there's a swapping of images.
Yeah.
And then they're being manipulated, blackmailed for money.
Yes, but the shocking thing is how quickly it turns. So you can imagine there's a young person, a young boy in this scenario. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to girls, it really does. But we've got a young boy who's like 10 seconds, or I'm going to put it over, share it with your family, your mum,
So
your
that's
dad,
the threat.
yeah, it's going to go on
Right,
social media. And
right.
even though this young man in the program is the decoy and he knows that this won't happen, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah,
he
yeah.
said, I can feel the pressure of this.
Yeah, yeah,
So it got me thinking, okay, because this can happen even if you're in a normal relationship with someone and then people split up and then they want to share pictures.
yeah,
And it's like, how isolating is that and how vulnerable, and the shame, the guilt, sitting in your own room, you'd think like, oh, this is going to happen. I'm going to get bullied. But I then went further and afterwards did some exploration, because I'm very much about, okay, we know what's the cause, but what else can be done afterwards? And what was really interesting was Childline.
yeah,
For anyone who's not been on Childline's website lately, whether you're young or whether you're older, go on it. It is amazing. Whether you're a professional, whether you're a parent, an auntie, a carer, just go onto the website. And if you're a young person, you need to know what's on here. There's so much support. But what's really interesting as well, if you're 19 and under, and you think your images have been shared online, contact them, and they have the resources to contact a lot of the agencies and get them removed, whether it be pictures or videos. It's not 100%,
yeah,
but even if they're unable to, they're there to support you, and they will support you straight away. And that is what is so important. And I will share the link to
yeah.
that when we're finished. Um, and if you're in any professional capacity with young people, download the posters, print them, laminate them, and leave them around for young people, because it is fantastic what they have. So,
Yeah, because you're more likely not to have a young person come to you if they feel scared and fearful of consequences. And also if they feel that shame, they
abs-
might not come to you. But if they see that there could potentially be a solution, i.e. via these
yeah,
posters that you said print out and have up, and then they can contact Childline and hopefully get any images or videos down, then that will be a reassurance to anyone that is in that predicament at this moment.
absolutely. And what we're trying to do here is save lives. It is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
important. And there's another program that I know a lot of people have been speaking about, and that's adolescence. And that's
yeah.
um, targeted around online bullying. But even then, you can contact Childline again, and there's help for that. But what's interesting on Channel 5, they have the real adolescence,
Right.
where it's not a drama, and the
Yeah,
drama is very good. I'm not taking anything away from the
yeah.
drama, but the documentary shows you real footage of what's happened. And again,
Okay.
it's not about shocking people, it's not about scaring, it's about being informed. That way you can safeguard our young
But this
people.
is the reality as well. You know, if people do find it shocking and want to turn away from it, you truly can't afford to, because it's the reality of what is happening in this day and age.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
also, what I wanted to say, Bev, is that the Prime Minister got behind the drama adolescence and said it should be shown in every single school, da 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 da. And I don't have any beef with that, but it wasn't based on actual reality, whereas the documentary that you've just mentioned obviously does. The sextortion documentary does. And also, you know, if we're talking about what children and young people should be shown, if it's appropriate, then we should be showing the three girls in schools as well, if we are going to be showing the adolescence drama. Because the Three Girls documentary, even though it came out many years ago, it is based on actual grooming gangs, and it's a hot topic at the moment politically, um, but socially and culturally, societally, it's also a topic of conversation that is a reality. So we can't shy away from it. And again, as you said, it's not about scaring anyone, but it's about being informed, understanding, acknowledging, and then also what are the solutions? Where can we go and get help and support? Because that is what we're all about.
Absolutely, because we don't want people to get informed and then think, what do I do? So Childline as a website, please go on it. It will save lives and improve lives as well for young people. And if you're a young person who happens to come across this podcast, please get in touch with Childline, because they're there 24/7. You can speak to them on the phone, you can text them, you can talk to them online. And if you are speaking to them online and someone walks into the room, you can actually have quick access to come out of the page. It's so worth it as a tool. So Chris, what about yourself? What conversations have you been having?
So we have recorded and we've got it set up to come out at the end of middle of August. We talked about domestic violence, didn't we? So I've just literally watched this morning Kate's story, and it's about domestic violence and then trying to leave a abusive relationship when you've got children, and then being pursued through the family courts to have access to the children, and how the family courts, in the way that they run, the way that the law is currently set up, that the power and control of the woman and the children is enabled because of the way that family courts are set up at the moment. So I watched this morning and I wrote a post on it. And if you just bear with me, I shall share the post that I wrote. She says, it's just important, I think, that people understand that women, I know it happens to men as well, but we're talking about violence against women and girls and boys at the moment. We're talking about gendered crime in the main. And we're talking about women that are trying to keep themselves safe, trying to keep their children safe, yet the family courts are set up to make sure that contact is enabled with alleged perpetrators, convicted perpetrators, at all costs. And they're saying that there should be supervised contact with children and alleged and convicted perpetrators of abuse in order to protect those children from abuse, and in order to make sure that this power and control dynamic doesn't continue on because of the situation of having children in the middle of it all. And it's really important that unsupervised doesn't happen, because that is where children are used and abused and often killed to make the woman pay back for leaving the domestic violence relationship. Does that make sense? When it's come out of my mouth, it felt all jumbled.
It's absolutely, I myself am a person who's left a domestic violence relationship, and that when you say that punishment for leaving, they don't believe that you've actually left. You don't even, like, I didn't make a noise, I didn't shout and all the rest of it. But when you do, and they think that you're going to go back to them, and when you don't, that I do know that. But I'm not saying that he was abusive to the children per se. However, yes, I was alienated. So they were abused in that way emotionally.
So this particular documentary was about Kate, the MP. And as I said, it's on ITVX and it came out last night. So it's very fresh. But also she spoke to many other professional women who also had the same similar experience. A policewoman, social care person. So many different women who have had the same experience who are now speaking out about it, but also many women that aren't allowed to speak out about it, because you're not allowed to speak out about it if you're going through the family courts, because it's about protecting the identity of the children or young people involved. So on one hand, they're trying to do that protection, but on the other hand, because they're enforcing this unsupervised access, keeping open the relationship between mum and dad to the children, not acknowledging convicted acts of violence, not taking on board allegations of abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it happens to be, then they are literally putting children in harm's way. So this is the post that I wrote this morning. Yeah. Well done, Dr. Proudman and all the ladies in the documentary. This clearly shows that domestic violence continues via the family courts, and it should not be happening. This is state-sanctioned abuse. Power and control is evident in this documentary. The trauma caused to the wife and children is unbelievable. Alleged and proven perpetrators should not have unsupervised access to their kids, full stop. I know women that have dropped allegations of abuse in order to keep their kids, because they were threatened literally by the barristers and solicitors that if they didn't drop the allegations, that they would potentially lose their children to either the state or to the alleged perpetrator. I know 2 women personally who have lost their kids to the perpetrator because they would not drop allegations of child sexual abuse. And I know those people personally. I know how bad the system is purely because I went through it as a kid when dad had been put into prison for his perpetration, because my stepmom had access, like she had custody of us, but mum was coming for access and then full custody. So I know from that perspective as a child going through it, and the power and control that the parents were having, fighting over us, and also how my stepmom used it against us when my mum didn't get custody straight away. It was like 3 court visits and all of that mess. I know a little bit of what it feels like. I do not know what it feels like to be a mum going through this, and I wouldn't want to put it on my worst enemy. So
Absolutely.
that's my little shining the light into this, and just really to say right now that we know that some men are in domestic violence relationships, and it will be the same dynamic if it's the woman that is the perpetrator.
And I know somebody, absolutely,
Exactly.
I know somebody there, and that was physical and emotional.
So we don't want to take that away from
Absolutely not,
from any victim of domestic violence. But I would just really say to any professional, anyone going through this that doesn't actually understand the nuances and the dynamics of this, to go and watch that. Because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Being educated, being more aware, and what solutions can we put into place, and how can we get people the help and the support that they need?
And the biggest thing here, and it's why we do our podcast, when we talk about abuse, nobody wants to talk about sexual abuse, and they don't want to listen to the children. They don't want to believe it happens. They don't want to believe the facts that was in the ICSA report. They don't want to believe that the majority of sexual abuse for girls happens before they've even gone to school, and the majority is in a familial setting. These are how hard facts.
And are in that ICSA report, November 22, if anyone wants to go and read it.
And is happening today still.
And
this is very hard, and I had somebody last week who said to me, how do you deal with some of this? Because I've heard
Yeah.
some awful stories and I can't cope with it. And I said, yes, it is really, really challenging. So you need to look after yourself, but put yourself in the place of that young person. How would
100%.
you cope at their age? And they're like, oh, don't, I can't even think about it. And I said, well, think
You got
about
to
it.
think
Think
about it.
about it. And then that way, what happens, you do look after yourself, but any anger, frustration, you
Yeah.
actually are able then to channel into it. Like, okay, so what can I do?
Yeah. What can we do? You can write to your MP, for example.
Yeah, but even like raise awareness through yourself, educate
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
As
Yeah.
soon
And
as you
have
educate yourself,
conversations.
yeah, that makes such a difference. And even last week, you know, people think that whilst we use different conversation, that everybody uses it. They don't. And I don't know about you, Chris, but I try not to bite and I try and take a deep breath. But when somebody uses certain language, even that we think is from like 40 years ago, oh, they're just making it up, or why can't they just let it go? You know, why can't they move on?
Excuse
They're
me.
they're just some of the comments that I get, and I have to educate them. And that's when I do, and I say, I'm 61. And can I remind you that I still, if I wanted to, well, I don't want to, but I can still remember the very first day. Not because I'm choosing to, but my body keeps that
Yeah.
in its brain to keep me
Yeah.
safe going forward. So now I
100%.
like to say it's my superpower to keep me safe.
Yeah. What I also wanted to touch upon, Bev, if you would let me do that. I have this weekend been studying for some of my accountancy qualification updates, and I finally got my certificate up on the wall after 25 years. So it's up there. And when I was doing my anti-money laundering studying this weekend, it really struck home how much we protect money and we don't protect children. Are you happy for me to read out this post that I wrote?
Absolutely.
It's quite long, but it's going to blow your socks off. So wait for this. We protect money better than we protect children, and this has to change. After 8 years serving on the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse as a VSEP panel member and 3 years campaigning for the full implementation of the ICSA 20 recommendations, I am now asking, why do we have more robust systems to protect money than to protect children? In the financial sector, where I also work professionally, the anti-money laundering, AML, regime is clear, enforced, and effective. Everyone in a regulated role must report suspicion or face prosecution. The threshold is low. A possibility more than fanciful is enough. So remember that bit. There are clear protected reporting routes. Reporters are protected from retaliation. Audits, oversight, and real consequences keep the system honest. Dirty money threatens economies and national security. Governments have built a strong framework to fight this because of that. But when it comes to child sexual abuse, CSA, and exploitation, the UK government's proposed mandatory reporting, MR, duty, included in the Crime and Policing Bill, is a start, but it falls short. It only applies when abuse is witnessed, ignoring that most abuse is hidden. Now, bearing in mind that when it comes to money, the threshold is a possibility that you know that something's going on. Yet when it comes to children, it has to be witnessed. Now, as we said, most abuse is hidden, it's not witnessed. Failure to report is not a criminal offence. Only deliberate obstruction is penalised. There's no national independent reporting system. There's no robust audit or meaningful enforcement. There is no guaranteed protection for those who report it. Meanwhile, the proposed Romeo and Juliet clause protecting consensual loving teenage relationships is a thoughtful detail, but it risks confusion without training. So the piecemeal approach to child protection is very inadequate. So what we need is what ICSA already has recommended, a coherent, enforceable package of 20 reforms, a system strong enough to protect children as effectively as AML, anti-money laundering, protects money. Now, these 20 recommendations include a proper universal mandatory reporting duty with a low threshold of suspicion. That is what we need. A new child protection authority known as a CPA, an independent national body to oversee safeguarding standards, audit compliance, and hold organisations to account. Consistent, properly funded support for victims and survivors. Mandatory training for professionals and clear guidance on recognising and reporting concerns. A cultural shift, embedding child protection as everyone's responsibility, not just a box to tick. These recommendations, taken as a package, will mirror what already works in the AML. Universal duty, protected reporting channels, oversight and audit, legal consequences for failure, cultural and professional change. Children deserve no less vigilance than money. Protecting children demands clarity, courage, and commitment. The same qualities we already apply to protecting financial systems. We cannot accept a weaker standard for children than for cash. What would it take to implement the ICSA recommendations fully? What ideas or lessons from AML could we apply to child protection? And then I've thought, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's have a conversation about this. When I sat there and studied all of this AML protection and reporting and compliance and this and that and this and that, and then I thought back to all of the work that we did at ICSA, all of the reports that were published, all of the campaigning and the activism that we've done over the last 3 years, I was so fecking angry, Bev, right? That we've got all of this for money, but we don't have it for our kids.
Absolutely, 100%. I know, and there's another caveat, and I love animals, and I'm not taking anything away, so please do not think I am, because I absolutely love animals. But again, animals are more safeguarded than children. People will pick up,
but children need
people
to
will
be.
pick up a phone because they're worried about an animal, but they won't do it for a child because they don't want to get involved. What if they're wrong?
And most often are, because it's hidden.
And also, who do I contact? I don't want to bother the police. I'm not sure. So if you're not sure, phone the NSPCC, contact them. Do it. It doesn't matter how small it seems. If there's something that doesn't feel right, contact them.
But just call it out, Bev. We've got to get over ourselves. Whoever we are in society, we've got to get over ourselves. We've got to understand what is happening. We've got to acknowledge it, because if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't capture the data, then there isn't a problem, is there? We can all look away.
And I see this
look away.
time and time again in trainings and the data that is given out, and it frustrates me. Hence, that's why I'm doing my degree on research, because I want to be able to understand the research papers, which I'm going to be very honest, are very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that I can change and communicate the message in the research, but most importantly, start advocating and taking part in some of the research going forward, so that we get research of today as well, because we have got some, but people pick and choose, want to be able to collate it. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing that. I don't think there's anything else we can say. I think that has tied that up so well, so neatly, and so shockingly. That we protect our money, but not our children.
And
So
I've just like, I never felt that when I was going through that study over the weekend that I would ever come to like that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So, as always, if there's anything that you've heard us discuss today and you want to put forward your own thoughts, whether you agree with us, whether you don't, please contact us on Breaking the Cycle to stepforward@gmail.com. We will put some of the programs links underneath in the write-up as well for you. But go and search. I will say, and this it's not a bias, it's, you know, go and look at all platforms, but I will say that Channel 4 and Channel 5 are particularly brave in their sharing, and they do it in such a thoughtful way, and their thought process when they put forward a documentary. I'm not saying that other people don't, so if you've got some ideas, please let us know and we'll share them.
100%.
And we'll watch them ourselves if we haven't already.
And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, then please get in touch. Tell us why you would like to be a guest. What would you bring to it? Because Bev and I, even though we share the detail of the topic in hand or someone's story, it's all about growth, and it's all about awareness, and it's all about accountability for us, isn't it, Bev? As well as
absolutely, and showing that we all need support. We didn't learn resilience because it was an easy ride. We've learned resilience because it's challenging and sometimes continues to be challenging. But we also, by opening up the conversation, we break down the shame, we break down that guilt, and we realise that there's a community out there that does listen to us and we can be heard, which is so important. Thank you very much, Chris, and goodbye to everyone. Goodbye.
Bye for now, everyone. See you soon.